Thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to give it just another minute or two to see if we can get some more people on here, and then we'll get started. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Our Nature webinar series. I am so glad that you could be here and join us today. As we all know, winter can make it a bit tough to get out and visit the Holden Arboretum or the Cleveland Botanical Garden. So we wanted to bring some of Holden's magic directly to you through this exclusive series. This is our way of thanking you, our incredible donors and supporters, for making everything we do possible. So today we'll be diving into today's topic, which is rooted in community, connecting Cleveland to the natural world, with HF&G's Community Engagement Coordinator, Tom Masevig, and our community guest, the founder and executive director of Organic Connects, Inc., Whitney Long Jones. Access to nature is one of the most powerful influences on health and community well-being, and yet not all Clevelanders get to experience it equally. So let's explore what we're doing to change that. And now I'm going to get started by introducing one of our panelists, Whitney. And I'm going to move us over here. First off, I'd like to introduce Whitney. Whitney serves as the executive director of Organic Connects Incorporated, a Cleveland-based nonprofit reconnecting youth and families with nature through outdoor recreation, environmental education, and green pathways. Previously, she coordinated Michelle Obama's Let's Move Outside initiative in Northeast Ohio and has contributed to the city and state environmental policy development. Whitney currently serves on multiple boards, including the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District, Cleveland Urban Forestry Commission, and the Cleveland Tree Coalition, and is dedicated to building authentic community partnerships that foster environment equity and engagement. Whitney, thank you so much for being here with us today. Is there anything that you want to add before we get started?
I guess just that I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for inviting me and Organic Connects, and looking forward to what the conversation has in store.
Sure, absolutely. And then up next, I want to introduce our next panelist, who is HF&G's very own Tom Masevig. Tom serves as the Community Engagement Education Coordinator at Holden Forest and Gardens, where he's dedicated nearly 13 years to connecting communities with nature. His career began with 12 years of teaching in the Midwest temperate forests, where he has discovered his own disconnection from rich biodiversity that he was studying daily. This realization inspired his mission to restore meaningful access to nature for Clevelanders experiencing a very similar disconnection. Tom has developed innovative STEM-centered programs, built strategic community partnerships that empower urban communities to connect with the natural world. His work is focused on cultivating the next generation of environmental leaders and stewards who help ensure a sustainable future for Cleveland's neighborhoods. We're very grateful to have Tom on our team and for the important work that he does in our communities. Tom, I'm also going to just pass that over to you. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Yeah, just want to say hi to everyone. Thanks for joining and taking an interest in the work that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to just kind of dive right in. We've got a nice series of questions here to pose to our panelists for us all to talk about. So the first section that we're going to be diving into today is understanding the work and the communities that our folks here are serving. So my first question to you guys is, can you both walk us through our current roles at Holden Forest and Gardens or Organic Connect? So Whitney, I am curious, we'll talk with you first. Just kind of what does your role look like? What is a day in your life look like? And if you can also describe the specific Cleveland communities that you're focusing on serving.
Sure. Thank you, Kylie. So, as Kylie stated, my name is Whitney Long Jones. I'm the Executive Director of Organic Connects Inc. We've been around since 2017, and what reconnecting is the word that we like to use because it's important to understand that we are already connected to nature. Sometimes we just need reminders. So our organization does use outdoor recreation, environmental education, and workforce to engage with youth, specifically in middle school. If we're talking, Cleveland, we do engage with Northeast Ohio and schools out and students outside of Cleveland, but our target audience is Cleveland. And that's really based on the lack of access that a lot of our program participants have to nature and job opportunities. That does expand, when we're really taking into consideration some of what our program participants are living with on a daily basis, coming from impoverished communities, coming from neighborhoods that have a low tree canopy. And please, if anybody has a question on some of these terms, I feel like, we're all nature-based. I don't want to make that assumption, though. So if I use any term that's unfamiliar with anyone, please throw that in the chat. I'm sure Kylie will stop me and ask me to expand. And so tree canopy, a lot of the urban communities, tree canopy is going down. So trees have an amazing benefit on our health. So just making sure that we are including families and communities as we're engaging our youth so that there's a better chance of them staying engaged with us. I think I'll stop there and give Tom some time.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Whitney. And Tom, yeah, same to you. If you can kind of just walk us through what your current role at Holden Forest Gardens looks like, and if you can also kind of describe that community that you're serving here in Cleveland.
Sure. Yeah, I'm the Community Engagement Education Coordinator at Holden Forest and Gardens. So all of our departments actually have the opportunity to do work out in the community. But within my department, we have a special focus on education. And so I have two modes that I focus on. One of them is an event mode where we partner with different organizations that will have festivals or resource fairs or community events that are free for everyone to join. And those are great chances for us to meet people in public, kind of introduce ourselves and make sure that they understand, what Holden Forest and Gardens mission is, what we do, the fact that both campuses are under one umbrella, let people know where we are. So it's a chance for us to introduce ourselves to people, and it's also a really good chance for us to get a good, clear picture of who our audience is and who our communities are. So that's what we do when we're in our event mode. It's a great way to just kind of like very quickly offer resources and exchange information, do some activities, and have fun. But then we also have a program mode. And so we have pop-up programs that are seasonal, where we will visit different partners. For example, the YWCA of Greater Cleveland is a partner who we went and did a pop-up program with yesterday. We visit them 3 times during 3 seasons of the year, and then during the summer season, they come and visit us. And those programs will have something to do with something from nature and the world of plants that happens during that season. And then I'll just say one more thing, and that's that we also have seasonal programs that last the whole season. So these are where we're looking for more long-term outcomes, and we're building relationships that are meant to last over time. And so we'll partner with places like Cleveland Recreation Centers. We work with the mayor's office to go to a couple recreation centers, which are in the inner city of Cleveland, and focus a little bit on project-based learning, community gardening, and connecting kids with STEM skills.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Tom. And just to kind of dive a little bit more into, your background and understanding where you're coming from this, at what personal experiences or realizations maybe that you've had led you to dedicate your work to reconnecting people with nature, and how has that journey shaped your approach today?
Well, I grew up in Slavic Village. That's where, I grew up all over Cleveland and beyond, but mostly in that area. That's where I was a kid. And when I went to school, elementary school, I very vividly still remember going to the library one day and looking at a book that was big, beautiful illustrations. It was about all of the animals or it was about all the letters in the alphabet and how there's at least one animal for every letter in the alphabet. And when I got to the letter L, there was this really amazing looking animal called a Luna moth. And it had this long tail. It was green and purple with these interesting eye spots. If anyone's seen one, you'll probably agree that they just look magical. They're amazing animals. And when I saw that, I thought that they were from the rainforest. I just couldn't imagine that they would be anywhere near the state of Ohio because I grew up in a neighborhood where the animals that I was used to were pigeons and sparrows and chipmunks and squirrels and raccoons, all wonderful animals, and it's amazing that they adapted to the urban environment, but it's limited compared to the wealth of biodiversity that's endemic to this region. So fast forward ahead to when I started an educator, an environmental educator living in a camp halfway between here and Columbus. And at that point, I was immersed in the forest. I lived there teaching field trips that would come in and get Ohio standards off of activities that we would do in the woods. Um, and it just so happened that that's where I, for the first time, saw a real Luna moth. And it was like seeing a unicorn. And it just blew my mind that that was something that's from where I come from. Something that seemed magical and impossible to me was something from here. And it kind of made me feel bad that it had taken me until I was almost 30 years old to see that for the first time. And so it just became one of those things that I wanted to connect my nieces and nephews to at an early age so that they can be getting all these benefits and that sense of wonder early on in life. So it's nice that we have the botanical gardens and the arboretum as a place that's within reach to be able to kind of use as a platform for experiences like that.
It sounds like a very magical experience, and I have definitely seen, a Luna moth in person, and it is a magical experience, and it's beautiful that that's kind of what is your through line with this all. Whitney, I'm curious from your perspective, what experiences have shaped and molded you into this direction, especially with, establishing your own nonprofit, and how has that changed and molded your approach even today?
Absolutely. So just thinking about, Tom mentioned growing up in certain places and locations, and the opportunity that I've had in living in 3 different social and environmental landscapes all contributed to that. So being born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, spending 5 years in my late 20s in Providence, Rhode Island, and, generally growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, each of those landscapes varies. and so do the people, and so do the way people interface with nature, with the outdoors. But for me, it's very spiritual, understanding our connection to nature. And that's kind of stuck with me my entire life. And eventually, I went to school for fine arts, but I would volunteer at cleanups. I would volunteer at tree plantings. And, in the long run, I was wondering why I wasn't working in this industry, because it was something that I was really passionate about. So I did a career change. And, Tom, similar to you, like my mid 30s is when I changed my direction and, how I decided to interact with nature on an ongoing basis. So I think that what ended up happening was my first role was that you mentioned, Kylie, was the Let's Move Outside initiative. And because nature had such a major impact on my life growing up, it is about that early exposure, Tom. You mentioned that as well. So that's a great point. Having worked at the YMCA and delivering outdoor programming to youth, taking students to a park, in my language, meant something completely different to the students that we were engaging in, taking to the Cuyahoga Valley National Forest or National Park for the very first time. They get off the bus, look around, they don't see the swings, they don't see the slides, so they're disappointed because what park means to them is more like in the playground context. So having to take a step back in the way that we approach who we interact with, who we interface with, how we engage, is making sure that we are on the same page if we're planning to reintroduce folks to the outdoors in that way, just like Tom saw the Luna moth. I've never seen a Luna moth in person. On picture, they are gorgeous, and I'm just waiting for that opportunity to show itself, to present itself, because I would love to see a Luna moth in person. And starting young, at as young of an age as we can, with our children and our students and our family, is providing all of those opportunities, going, even if it means taking one step at a time. Programming that is based on, some of the examples of outdoor recreation that we provide is kayaking, is horseback riding, all of those things that even a person on an everyday basis may not have the opportunity to experience. So we want to provide all of those opportunities, as many as possible, for the students that engage with our programming. And outdoor stewardship and environmental education may involve planting those trees, putting your hands in the dirt, growing seed from, starting a plant from seed, and really understanding and the importance of that and seeing the product grow. And that's where we see the impact and the change in people's lives when they come back to us and say, oh my goodness, I'm growing my own tomatoes now. Thank you for showing me how to do it. So it really just goes back to my beginning, and then running into my business partner and my husband, who was also as part of the Organic Connects team. My role is more administrative, the grant writing, the relationship development, partnership development, and his role is more program implementation and design. So we bring our two loves, and I have to say, he's also an outdoor wilderness survivalist. So it's bringing our skills together to make sure that Organic Connects is living up to the mission. And we'd be remiss if we didn't contribute where we are today to our board, to our advisory committee members, to our volunteers, to our interns, to our families, to everyone that has supported what Organic Connects is doing. So that's kind of what led up to where we are now. And we've had such an impact, engaging over 500 youth and students and family members in our existence, and developing relationships in other states, throughout Northeast Ohio, but providing opportunities to take students camping and family members in the Allegheny National Forest, right? So, I think it just really boils down to how we engage the community and how we're presenting the information and making sure that there's a relevance in people's lives, so that there's some ongoing longevity and interaction with nature once Organic Connect steps out of the picture.
That's amazing. So it sounds like it's just kind of always been in your background, following you through many phases. And now you're finally in a space where it's really expressing in a lot of ways. And especially amazing that you're partnered with somebody who's just as passionate. That's amazing. So I'm going to move us into, you guys have a really specific and interesting lens into, Cleveland and their relationship with nature. I think that especially here at Holden Forest and Gardens, it's something that we're thinking about all the time, and how we can, better strengthen that connection. And you guys are really on the ground doing a lot of this work, and it's a really interesting perspective. So Whitney, I'm going to pose this question to you first. Through your work, what patterns have you observed in the terms of Cleveland's relationship with nature across different neighborhoods and different populations that you've worked with?
Kylie, it really varies because we have to be realistic about our country's history. Why does the lack of access to nature exist in certain populations where you don't see the issue in other populations, other demographics, other neighborhoods and communities? So I think that there are tons of amazing initiatives taking place right now because there's a realization. People are being honest about this. And I'll give credence to the HF&G, Holden Forest and Gardens, which is accessible at the Botanical Garden in Cleveland, to Cleveland Metro Parks with Youth Outdoors. I mean, there's tons of, I can't name them all. There's so many initiatives, even smaller organizations like SciAT and Journey on Yonder that are doing a lot of this work in the communities on the ground and doing the best to really break down those barriers. When we apply, we see foundations providing more opportunities to request operational funding for smaller organizations that include food and transportation, which, there are still barriers for organizations, don't get me wrong, but there are opportunities out there for smaller organizations to apply for those things that really help to make their programming better. So I will say there are some of the aspects that are still a struggle do include legislation. When we're talking about air quality, when we're talking about lead, clean drinking water, again, there are tons of initiatives that are taking place to improve these issues, but they still exist. And I think what needs to happen is more people becoming involved in some of these initiatives and opportunities. But again, we have to make sure we're addressing some of the basics people need that people are focused on, especially in more communities experiencing high poverty levels. So when someone's in survival mode, their priority is not planting a tree. They may want to. It doesn't mean they don't care about nature or aren't interested. It just means that they may have to work two jobs. They may be a single parent raising multiple children where, if the community can come together and support folks that are in situations like this, outside of the social service agencies that are doing this work as well, but it does take a more boots on the ground, community-based effort to really be able to help a lot of the folks that are in the situations where they're unable to do anything outside of work, making sure that their children have food or they have a place to live. So I think those are a couple of the things that I've observed in Cleveland and other urban cities, not just Cleveland. I mean, this is happening statewide, countrywide, worldwide, where people are in survival mode. So there's not too much time or space to do anything out of what a living means. So want to highlight the positive and also some of the areas where we can see some improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, I'm going to pose the same question to you, just through your lens. What patterns have you observed in your work that have kind of revealed Cleveland's relationship with nature across maybe different spaces, different populations, etc.?
Okay. I can pick up kind of where Whitney left off. I like how she started talking about how it goes beyond Cleveland to different regions, and I'll mention that when I was at the camp, that was, like I said, halfway between here and Columbus. We would get kids from the Columbus area, from the Cleveland area, and all the rural areas in between. And one thing that I noticed that seemed, across the board to be a pattern was that when I would take people into the forest for the first time, and try to start pointing things out to them about the plants and the trees to kind of familiarize them with the details of the forest. It was just like when I first started that job, it just looked like kind of like when you draw a picture of a forest as a kid or draw a picture of a tree as a kid. You draw like the rectangle for the stem for the trunk, and then you draw this like cloud shape or a circle for all the leaves. And then if you're going to draw for, you're just scribbling and drawing shapes of just like a big blob of green. So it's like you're thinking of it in this general, oh, that's all the forest. And then as you start learning all the different pieces and parts of it, you start realizing how rich and complex it is and seeing all the finer details, and it becomes this high resolution thing that was blurry at first. And so I would be looking for that as I was starting to point out, okay, this is maybe a geranium, or maybe this is a Jack in the pulpit, or whatever type of plant that I would show them. It would be exciting. There would be that aha moment when they would be able to kind of pick it out from along the trail and point out that they just identified the thing that they had just noticed and learned about for the first time. I noticed that also when I am in the city in Cleveland in the urban gardens that we have. It'll just be a kind of a big garden. It's a big blurry thing. And then once you raise for the first time a tomato or a mint plant, and you know, okay, this has a square stem and it has opposite leaves, it has a smell to it and a feel to it. They start being able to recognize that it's like being in a crowd of people that you don't know, and all of a sudden you're becoming familiar. You're building relationships with them. So that kind of like walks us into the idea that there's this pattern that I see that people don't seem to intuitively see themselves in plants, see the relationship. It feels like something that is separate from us. Uh, and so, one of the approaches that I have to take is to you know, introduce the idea of maybe taking a plant home and taking care of it and saying, well, all living things have these same basic needs, and you have to check on your needs every single day. You got to make sure you have enough food. You got to make sure you have enough water. And so it's the same type of concept with plants. So one of the first steps with anybody, if it's adults or kids, it seems like one of the easiest ways to start this journey is to compare plants and animals to ourselves and develop that sense of empathy that kind of turns into the sense of responsibility and like unlocks that nurturing instinct that we all have as humans.
That's awesome. And I think that goes back to Whitney's point earlier with the idea of it's all about that reconnection. It's something that's kind of already established within ourselves, but it's nurturing the understanding that it's a through line, all living organisms. That's amazing. So I think that it's specifically too looking at Cleveland's connection to nature. And again, Whitney, you kind of had already mentioned we have a history that we need to take into consideration that kind of makes the landscapes and the spaces that we are interacting with on a daily basis different maybe than other regions, and even other cities. But I'm kind of curious in general, Whitney, I'm going to pose this question to you first. How have like the historical factors of maybe even like Cleveland's industrial history impacted the city's connection to nature? Like you might be kind of seeing that on that larger legislative scale, et cetera. And then, when you're thinking about that too, what barriers do you see in kind of creating that equitable access today?
Yeah, so there are a couple of organizations and advisory committees where Organic Connects is represented in not all of these, but quite a few movements. So I'll mention first the Clean Water Act, right? Under the leadership of the Stokes brothers, right? In the 60s when the Cuyahoga River caught on fire multiple times. And the last one was the final stretch. The community actually spoke up. Stokes was leading the community in addressing the filthy water. Why are industries allowed to just dump waste into this living tom? To your point, nature is us. Nature is alive. Why are we treating it this way? As if we don't need this water, and not just to drink, but to provide sustenance for all the other living beings in the area, the ecosystem. So that's one initiative, the Clean Water Act. That was a major, major, major um, legislation that was put into place federally, so across the country, which had a major impact on how we interface with water today. And as a representative on the Cuyahoga River Area of Concern Advisory Committee, which is an initiative of the EPA. There's multiple all over the state, but the one specifically here that Organic Connect serves on is making sure that we are bringing the Cuyahoga River back to a space which we have. I think along with other organizations and initiatives, have done a lot of work and had major impact on the cleanliness and the usage of the Cuyahoga River. We're seeing more people recreating and fishing and being able to eat the fish out of the Cuyahoga River and Lake Erie, right? Which, recently in the recent past, you were not able to do that. And you probably didn't want to when you saw like deformed fish coming out of the water. So that's one initiative. Then you have the Cleveland Air Quality Coalition, which Organic Connects is represented in that initiative. It's a cohort of nonprofits, advocacy organizations, institutions, community members that is really addressing the poor air quality in Cleveland. So the American Lung Association has ranked in their 2025 report, a State of the Air report, that Cleveland has the ninth worst air quality in the country among 200, similar and comparable cities, metropolitan cities, which is absurd. That is ridiculously crazy. And just that idea of being the ninth worst in the country blows my mind. So we're working with Cleveland Air Quality Coalition cohort members to talk to the city of Cleveland, to recommend changes to the air code, which is in the process of being updated right now, so folks can know. And the last time the air code was updated was 1977. So we're talking about almost 50 years. And this is an opportunity for residents to become involved in having a say in how the environment affects them. So I think the city of Cleveland has been doing a great job. The Department of Public Health, Division of Air Quality under Christina Yoker's the outreach and engagement division leadership has been doing a really good job of conducting community conversations and bringing awareness. We wanted to support that initiative. So long story short, those are just a couple of areas where we see how industry can impact how people live. But it is going to take residents coming together, feeling empowered, uh, understanding the tools and resources, like organizations providing the support that residents need to stand up and advocate on their behalf for clean air. That's one thing that we're focusing on right now. So I think that's really the a huge advocacy issue that we're focusing on, that Organic Connects is working with.
That's great. And I think it's interesting to see ourselves and like to your point too, especially with the air quality of like ways that we can, step up as individuals and as the community members to really support those types of initiatives. Very important. They make big changes. Tom, from your perspective, is there anything that you've kind of noticed in specifics with Cleveland's industrial history and how it's impacted the kids that you work with, the work that you do, and their connection to the natural world around them?
Yes. So that I definitely think about the Clean Water Act and the Burning River, also whenever this topic comes up, and just the history of Cleveland having been, the richest city in the world for a period of time when the world's moguls were, doing everything with the railways and oil, and everything was booming. There was development and industrial growth, and it was making us the richest city in the world. And priorities were different. The priority was development when it came to like a city being developed, and having nature around became kind of uh, something that you would expect outside of the city. So downtown started becoming really dirty, and people who live downtown started moving to places like Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights and stuff like that, because they started realizing as it got so dirty downtown that it wasn't to be desired and it wasn't healthy, it wasn't clean. What we are experiencing, I would say, as I was growing up, was the aftermath of that when we became the Rust Belt instead of, I don't remember what Cleveland might have been nicknamed. Oh, the Forest City. Yeah.
The Forest
Um,
City. Yeah.
yeah. So, I think it changed our identity. I don't think there was a lot of pride in Cleveland as a city as I was growing up. But I think that that is coming back now with some of the initiatives that the current mayor has, and with the results of the community coming together to uh, get behind some of the things that uh, we need regarding environmental resources. Um, I would say another way to say that is it's almost like we've been displaced in place. Like the people who have stayed here are almost feel like they're not from that forest city. It's almost like we've been displaced from that mindset, from that feeling that this city that we call home is that same thing, that forest city that was once called. Um, I do think that, we kind of identify more now with technology and with the hustle and bustle, when that's just one aspect or one way to approach life. And that people need to be reacclimated to what the actual benefits are of nature, and seeing it as a science, that there's evidence to back up the wellness benefits, that I feel that we all should feel entitled to. That should be a right that you're born with, um, access to all the natural resources that are native to your area, and that those things aren't just from fairy tales or myths and legends about plants. They actually do um, help you heal and restore.
That's great. And I think that, kind of looking forward into the next part of this conversation, you guys have both mentioned, how the power of community co-creation and community effort and impact really help mold and shape the experiences that we're having today. So I'm going to move us into that segment, which is community co-creation and empowerment. I would love, Tom, to kind of throw this question at you, which is, how do you ensure that the communities that you serve have genuine input and or leadership in designing, the nature reconnection programs that you work with them through, rather than just kind of like implementing a plan that's, externally thought through?
One example that I could give is a planting day that we do at one of the recreation centers, Cadell Fine Arts, which is on the west side in the Detroit Shoreway neighborhood. Um, it's one of those things where we knew that that would be an opportunity to just engage the community in the springtime when we weren't normally doing stuff. And so we did start it that way by just kind of coming in and saying, "Oh, here's this empty space where there aren't plants. Let's put them there. Let's see who wants to jump in and help us." And that's how we kind of got started, just to see if there would be any interest whatsoever, if we could kind of do at least on a transactional level, kind of the way we do with our events, that we partner with other organizations who are organize them, will participate as resource providers. This was kind of like being the organizers of an event and just seeing what stuck. Um, and so, since everything kind of didn't fall apart the first year, we decided to say, okay, well, let's see how we can turn this into a community-led type of thing. One of the things that we do is, since we have projects every year in those gardens, we have the kids help us decide what those projects might be by having a map of the garden itself and having them color and draw in the things that they might like to add, whether it's real or not real. The colors that they put on there could inform what color plants that we get. If they draw a structure that can kind of stimulate a conversation about, okay, so let's say the structure is a slide or something like that. We could talk about what is it about this slide that you like. If it turns out to be something that they really wanted to do, then we would work with them to figure out, okay, now let's talk about what it takes to make something like that happen. So since we do that with them, that it's nice that we have a long-term full season program with them. We're there for every week of the summer and every week of the fall to go into a whole project. And so if we let's say there's a project where they want to create a decorative element, there's a picnic table there that's all stone that we could put a tile mosaic on. Well, we can work with the kids over time if that's what their interest is. If they identified that in that coloring page that maybe that table be colorful, then we can spend time working with them to design that, figure out what, colors and illustrations or materials that they would want to vote on. And that being able to kind of like introduce that dynamic of, okay, we're planning together, we're voting on things together. That leads into a club mentality. And so we also have a 4-H club, and then that involves voting for different roles. And then maybe if you have an event that you want to plan, there's an opportunity to think of ideas on how to raise funds and organize. And then from there, at that same exact rec center, we also now have um, a volunteer like advisory board that helps with the events, including that planting day. So the same kids that can be in this program that we do, the out of school program, and who are getting practice and experience being in that club mentality if they choose to be in the club, then that gives them the skills that they need to organize on like a volunteer board level. And then that volunteer board has also even, now that it's organized, it's a fairly new thing, has even organized nights when a city council member would be on site and that the community could bring up their opinions or concerns to the attention of city council, which then leads into what we were just talking about when it comes to local history and local community members being able to organize and express their concerns and interests to hopefully affect not litigation, legislation. Thank you. Yeah, so that's the first thing that comes to mind with that. It's like everything kind of like leads into the next thing, but it's all informed on people's interests. So I do have to provide the space and the like format that allows them you know, the opportunity to raise their voices, discuss their thoughts, and then turn them into real life things that apply to them. Um, Kind of lost track of what I was saying there, but I think I got out most of what I was trying to say.
That's okay. I think that was a wonderful example. And it's interesting to see, the many different ways that you can kind of incorporate different people's opinions and thoughts and really, I think, serve the community on a more genuine level. Whitney, I think I'm curious to know, especially with your work kind of varying in experiences and like a lot of other things, if, like the terms of bringing people to different places. How have you, taken, consideration of the communities that you're serving and designing programs that reconnect people with nature that, really suit their needs and, their unique perspectives?
Right. So I absolutely appreciate, Tom, that a statement you made a couple of questions ago where you said um, introducing empathy, which will then turn into responsibility. And that like hits the mark on how we approach things. So authentic engagement is definitely at the top of our approach to making sure that we not just include, but we look to, we ask. And it's, if we see an issue in a community, it's not just us going in and saying, hey, here's a problem, let us fix it for you. Because again, if that's not the priority of the community, then you're wasting your time trying to get them involved in something that they don't want to be involved in that moment. So it's asking for insight. It's asking for guidance. Hey, we noticed this. What do you all feel about it? And if you feel this way, can we develop some sort of community advisory committee and pay you for your time, right? So if we're working with those Block Club leaders, those community leaders, those spiritual leaders who have access to broader audiences, as opposed to us trying to touch 25,000 people in a neighborhood, now we have access to 10, 15, 20 folks who can share the information that and also give us insight on what it is people want to know and how they will receive it. So we have community meetings. We're also trying to address those barriers of participation. A single parent, bring your children. We'll have childcare. We'll have activities for the children to do so that you can participate in this public meeting. We have food if it's dinner time. And even, some people, food insecurity is a reality. People will come to our event, not for what we're talking about, but just to have some food. That's an opportunity for us to build rapport. I'll talk about this picture right here that you're looking at right now with the youth who are doing a community cleanup. This is fifth graders in the Cedar East 55th neighborhood. And of course, when we said to the children, we're going to do community cleanup today, it was part of an 8-week initiative where, again, part of Let's Move Outside, we're trying to get students to go to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. So after that whole debacle of the children getting off the bus and being super disappointed that there weren't swings and slides because I told them we were going to the park, we took a different approach. And the first week it was, let's do something in your neighborhood. Let's identify what nature looks like right where you are. So on the school grounds, we did plant ID, plant identification, tree mapping, and you make it fun. You make it a game. You make it a competition, something that the students will retain. It's like learning and not even knowing that you're learning because to them it's a game, right? So you make it fun. And the next week we'll go to the neighborhood park and talk about what nature looks like there. The week after that, we'll go to the Cleveland Metro Parks and so on and so forth. We're taking the students out a little further each time. So by the time the end of 8 weeks comes around and we're going to the national park, a group of 20 students had a blast planting 60 trees for 3 hours. They were surprised the time went by so fast and wanted to stay longer. So that was so reassuring, right? And just let us know that that approach was a great approach. And this cleanup right here, when we're talking about making something relevant to somebody's everyday life, a parent had come in to the school right as we were walking the children out of the door, and she said, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" I said, "We're going to do a cleanup. There's litter along the streets, and we just want to take some pride in the community and also, make sure that stormwater runoff isn't pushing trash into our waterways, into our sewage system." So I said, "Do you want to come with us?" And she said, "Absolutely not. I didn't put that trash on the ground. I'm not picking it up." Typical response, right? I said, I get it. Do you own your home? And she goes, "Yeah, actually, my grandmother left it to me when she passed away." And I said, "Listen, your utility bills are going to go up the more trash that's on the ground." And her eyes were like, "Wait, what? I'm already struggling to pay my bills. What do you mean my bills are going to go up?" So I had to be honest in that moment, but I knew that would be a shocker and it would get her attention. So when we said, well, your bills aren't going to go up next month, but if we look at the amount of work that the sewer district has to do to clean our water, and there's so much trash in it, and the trash continues to accumulate and grow, not only is it affecting our ecosystem, but it's also making a more strenuous process for the sewer district. Right now, me not being an expert in sewer district and water cleaning, that's not my thing. But I took the opportunity in the moment to give a potential example of how utility bills could go up and how it could directly affect you. So she ended up coming with us that day, and she had a blast, right? So it's moments like that if you can connect something to someone's everyday life, they're more likely to at least listen to what you might have to say. And if they listen, then that's when you develop the relationship, show genuine concern, and then continue communicating with them. Don't just use them for that moment. And then like you got what you want and you walk away, but you keep the relationship going. So her child ended up coming to some of our programming. And I think they moved out of the city and are no longer involved. But it was the fact that she met us accidentally as we were about to go do something and she joined in. So it's moments like that that really give our organization the the fuel that we need to keep on going. And it's moments like that make us proud and feel like we're doing the right thing. Did I answer your question? I feel like Tom. Like I don't I don't know if I even answered your question, but that story came to mind looking at this picture.
No, I think it's great and it's really insightful. I think that the question was primarily around just like the idea of how you're gaining input from the community and then serving them in a better way. And I think that that story provides a different perspective than just what you would think in the terms of how you approach programming, but also how you are educating the community and like their awareness of how all of this work impacts them in one way or another and how valuable that is. So,
Yeah.
absolutely, I think you answered that fabulously.
Okay.
For the sake of time, I'm going to just pass us on to the next and final topic here. I do want to remind everybody that if you do have any questions, you can shoot them into the little Q&A module up here up top. But I'm going to just head into this next one. So we're looking kind of in this last chapter here, at the future that you guys are building and the impacts that you are making. And Whitney, I'm going to pass this first question here off to you, which is, if you could, if you had a magic wand and, you were kind of looking at what you could make possible for the redesigning or the reconnection that you're looking to make for Cleveland and its connection to nature, what specific, initiatives or programs or tools or supports would you be looking for that you're building even right now that would move you towards that vision?
Yes. So if let's see, if I had my way, if we had our way, I mean, just everyone that's working toward the same goal in an ideal world, I'm going to frame it, if we had a magic wand, in an ideal world, we would skip past all of the legislation. We would skip past the education. Things would automatically click in all of our minds that we need to grow our own food. And we'd be able to, so there'd be some changes in social constructs is what I mean by like skipping over the legislation happened, but we skipped over that process and we're here now. We'd know how to grow our own food. We would use food as medicine. We would interact with one another in a healthy way, regardless of what we look like, what we have, what we've been through. And I think that getting down to the basic meaning of community, of village, of being there for one another to support, I think like a lot of our issues would not even exist anymore because we would have each other to lean on. A single parent, mother would be able to leave her child with a neighbor while she goes and does what it is she needs to do to bring in money for the household. Another member would be growing food for the community. Another member would be cooking it. Another member would be sewing clothes. And a lot of our ailments come from the chemicals that are in our food and in our clothing and in our furniture and in the air. And I would love to see more trees that are purifying the air. And this is an ideal world. So that's what I would see. I would see everyone working together to build community in an authentic, impactful, and lasting way. And that involves the heart of that is nature. So,
Absolutely. It sounds like we need to find you a magic wand. Tom, I'm curious, looking back at your most like impactful and successful programs, what like unexpected positive transformations, even if they are expected, have you seen, in the communities that you've been serving that go kind of maybe beyond even just that, root initiative that you had? I'm kind of curious if you can share a story with us.
What I'd say feels like, the biggest surprise to me, and it's maybe just because of how much emotion is just involved in it. When I come to a community that I haven't worked with yet for the first time, it's honestly nerve-wracking and scary, just because I'm not from there and they have a culture that I'm unfamiliar with. And I have to learn what that is. And I want to make sure that I'm approaching things in the right way. And it's just scary, to be honest. There's just a lot of emotions and nerves on my part in the beginning. And so I make a huge goal out of the relationship building part of this process and making sure that if they're welcoming me and hosting me to deliver programming to an audience in that community, it's a huge goal of mine to welcome them to our campuses and to have that be a reciprocal relationship. And I'll say one of the biggest, hugest surprises is what that feels like because I'm there 75% of the time and they're with us maybe 25 or less. And when they come to visit, it's so amazing because it's like it's 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 like it almost feels like the bond is stronger than I realized when I was always there. When they're arriving, when I'm going and visiting them, it's kind of like, their everyday business. They're used to seeing it. They're kind of, you know, more subdued than when they get to the gardens or the arboretum and they run out of the bus and hug you right away. And if I'm taking them on a hike at the arboretum and they see a plant that we talked about in the gardens or talked about when we were doing an activity, and that whole green blob thing that I was talking about earlier has already been addressed, and they're already pointing out something that's familiar that makes them feel like, okay, this connects what you do when you come visit us with what we do when we're visiting you. Um, that's just a really rewarding, amazing feeling, and it's just a feeling that I can see on them. Like the aha moment is amazing. I see it all the time, but when it comes full circle like that, when they're visiting us, that's huge. And if just to say one more quick thing, because I really like that magic wand question, if I could wave one, I would recreate a moment over and over again that we experienced at the Arboretum, where we had a night hike. And we stopped at one of the ponds, this Blueberry Pond, and we looked up, and from that perspective, you could see the Milky Way, a million stars in the sky. You could even see shooting stars. From that perspective, you could see those reflecting in the lake. So you saw all the stars above and a reflection of them on the lake. Then you saw lightning bugs everywhere, not just the ones that are floating above the grass slowly, that are like kind of a bright green, but there's these ones that are in the trees that you could see through the tree line that are like sparkling, like a fizzling kind of sparkle. They're just so bright and they flash rapidly, and it's so sparkle, sparkle, sparkle everywhere. Then even on the ground around the lake, there's the glow worms that are glowing, the larva of the firefly. And so it's just up, down, every angle. The whole world is just glittering all around you, and it makes you feel like that spiritual element that Whitney referred to earlier. It's like, how could you not be amazed and kind of feel like, how is this possible without something bigger than me? Just like instills that sense of awe. And so it would be amazing to get all the groups that we work with to that point where not only are they visiting us, but they're ready to visit us even at nighttime and capture that specific moment. Or if I could recreate some type of moment that would impact them that same way, or like when I saw that Luna moth or whatever it is for whoever it is. I would just say that's just like that impactful moment that really like sticks with me and makes me just really, really love what we're doing and feel like it's making a difference.
Thank you for sharing that, Tom. And I'm glad that you took a little bit of time to share that because it's important to talk about those awe-inspiring moments and how we can create them and how lucky we are to live in a world that has them. And it's all about just getting folks in those spaces where they can actually access them. I want to be cautious of the time, but I do have at least just one question that I think is a great way maybe for us to round out the questions with you guys. And it's about involvement. If somebody who wants to get involved or support this kind of like community centered nature work, where is a good place for them to start? Whitney, I'll kind of have you take it first.
Sure. I know we're at time, but I have to acknowledge this question in the chat and the young boy hugging the horse. We work with so many students who have toxic stress and trauma, and they're dealing with ADHD and autism, are on the spectrum to some degree, and adults too. So are the children afraid of the big horses? Some are starting out, but you'd be surprised. The vast majority of our program participants go to the horses and feel a calm. And this young man right here, he is considered one of the, bad actors. The terms that they label children with kind of like blows my mind when you're not really considering how they're living on a daily basis, what they're challenged with. So we take them out into the woods. We take them to the horse farm, which if anyone's interested, this farm is in Novelty, Ohio, Free Spirit Farm. And this young man, went and hugged this horse all by himself after a day of grooming, of cleaning the stalls, of walking the horses and riding them. So long story short, some are, but generally, no, they're not afraid of the horses. And some of them even go toward the horses in ways that we have to tell them to calm down because you don't want to startle the horse. So it's an amazing, amazing exchange and interaction, and you have to be there to witness it. But if you want to join any of our programming, to get back to Kylie's question, I know we're there. You can find us online, www.organicconnects.org, or you can send an email to me, and I'll connect you to our program manager if you wanted to sign up for an activity, WLJ@organicconnects.org. We're also on social media at Organic Connects, Connect spelled CNX. So that's how you can contact us. And we do have things coming up where we would love some volunteer participation. So please feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you, Whitney. And Tom, I'll hand it over to you as well if you just want to talk about, anybody who might be interested in getting involved.
Okay, yeah, the next opportunity is going to be during our Arbor Day celebration on April 24th. If you want to come over to the Botanical Gardens, I know it's going to be free admission that day, and there will be lots of different resources, even from other departments. My table will be one of them. Otherwise, you could just get a hold of me at that email address there. That's my work email, so you could email me directly. If you don't happen to have the chance to jot that down, then you could always just go on our website and there's an ask a question feature, and those questions, if they're related to me, always just get forwarded to me and I can respond to you that way.
Awesome. I can't thank our panelists enough for the conversation today. It was really wonderful and insightful and inspiring. Thank you to everybody who is on this call with us and was able to join us. I want to remind you that there will be a recording of today's webinar. So I'll be sending that out via email along with a lot of the information that you're seeing on screen here. So you can get a hold of Whitney, Tom, or, Organic Connects in general. We do have one more webinar left of this series for this year, and that's going to be taking place the last Thursday of April. That's April 30th, from 12 to 1 again. And that conversation is going to be around opening the gate. It's a conversation on civic spaces in Cleveland, and that's going to be held by CBG's Director of Horticulture, Amanda Hanna, and our guest, Macy Nelson from Land Studios. It's also going to be a really wonderful conversation, so I hope you can join us for that. All that information will be included in the follow-up. And again, thank you, Whitney. Thank you, Tom, for taking some time out of your day and sharing some wonderful insights and inspiring stories. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Kylie, having us and Organic Connects. Take care, everyone.
Of course. Yeah. Bye-bye, guys.
Okay.